Ready or not, it's time to elevate. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Elevate with Antoinette. I'm Antoinette, and today we have a special co-host, Jocelyn. But I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we're going to talk about what elevating really means to us, and hopefully you will get some impact or mutual feelings from it. And of course, as usual, comment if you can relate or if you can't. We want to hear your point of view. But right now, we're going to introduce Jocelyn. Go ahead.
Hi, guys. I'm a teacher, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, an aunt, and an aspiring writer.
All right, so you guys heard that, an aspiring writer. We're definitely going to have to touch on that as well because we're here to elevate each other, and we want to make sure we are able in the future to read some of Jocelyn's material and get her out there. And it always helps to have a cheer section to get you motivated. But now let's start with elevating and what it means to us. For me, I spoke about this before, but to elevate for me is just like moving up, like in whatever that looks like for you. Like for me, it was my mental health. I could not stay still or stay grounded anymore because my mental health was really struggling at one point, and I knew that I had to elevate out of where I was. So at one point, my main focus was getting better in my mental health. And from there, I wanted to elevate in my career. I mentioned before, I don't like to say I'm a politician because I'm not, but I do sit on a seat that would be labeled a political seat. But I'm a realtor, and sometimes that gets difficult when you're working for commission and you have your mental health is struggling. So then you don't work and then you don't eat because you didn't make any money. So it's like it was just a downward spiral for me. And I knew I had to elevate one area that will help me elevate the next one and the next one and the next one. But what do you think? What does elevating in your life look like?
I like what you said, and I think that it is very true that elevation does have like a almost full body effect of like spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, in career. It touches on our relationships as well. And so for me, elevation means, like you said, taking that next step to get to a higher place. And sometimes that actually looks like maybe taking a step back or really reflecting on where you want to be, where you're at, and looking at where you've come so far. Because I think it's really important to not to set unrealistic expectations of ourselves.
Yeah.
But also have in mind that, there are things that we can do to get to that next place.
Yeah, I like that with the not setting unrealistic expectations because sometimes, like, for instance, in real estate, if I sold, 2 homes a month last year, I should not set the expectation to sell 10 homes a month because when I don't meet that, I'm going to be sad. And once I get sad, then it's like, okay, I'm not going to work, So you really do have to take that step back and reflect of where you've been and where you want to be so you can take the steps because it is like elevating is like being on an elevator. You have to take it's one floor at a time, one step at a time to really get there. And I feel like you have to be patient with yourself. And like, I really, really, I try not to, and I try to stay very mindful, but I'm really hard on myself. And then I get mad that I'm hard on myself, like, because I do expect not perfection, but near perfection from myself because so many people depend on me and I don't want to let anyone down. But elevating is also understanding that you're not perfect and no one else is either. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not holding anyone else to that standard of perfection, why do I think I need to hold myself to it?
Mm.
You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like I don't it's difficult. It's I feel like it's easy to say but difficult to fall into place.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think as women, that is something that we struggle with is
Mhm.
having this idea of like perfection. Like you have this idea of like what your wedding is going to look like,
Yeah.
what your
Yeah.
family is going to look like, what your career is going to look like. And then when you come to the reality of what maybe all those things look like, and then you see them and they fall short, and it's just kind of this feeling of discouragement.
Mhm.
You know, and what I like about what you're trying to create for all of us and doing this podcast and just opening up and having these conversations is, what does elevation really look like? Well,
Mhm.
sometimes, like when I think of elevation, you know, you said an elevator, I think of like a mountain, and you have to
Mhm.
take things like a step at a time.
Yep.
And there's a certain degree that when you get to so far in the mountain, there's actually less air to breathe. So it's like at that point, you really need to prioritize what's important. What are the things
Um,
that we really need to focus on, and what is the cost too? What's the cost of making this endeavor? And
yeah.
so, you know, sometimes it is looking at things and being like, well, what is a priority to me? You know, what is it that I really want out of this situation? And not cutting that thing off and being done with it, but saying, okay, can I make this dream, this idea, this passion in a different way? Or
Mhm.
can I be able to put it aside for now and come back to it later because it's still important
Right.
to me,
Right.
but maybe it's not something I can carry along right now?
Yeah. That is important, the balance of it all. Because I say that there is no balance. I'll say this over and over and over again. There is no balance. But like you said, if you prioritize, you know that breathing is my number one priority. So, what do I have to set aside in order to make sure I'm still breathing? Like sometimes that balance looks like I'm choosing this today and sitting this to the side, and then maybe I can get back to this tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And again, being patient with yourself and understanding that you can't do everything. Like I can't be at a commissioner's meeting and be showing houses at the same time. I'm one person. There's no, the balance is go to the commissioner's meeting maybe before show houses or on the weekend. You know, so that is that is my way of balancing, and it's also my way of elevating because I'm giving myself the space to choose both things and
Mm-hmm.
um not just being so hard on myself and saying, you know what, I can't do it, I fail, I can only do this or I can only do that. Because in our purpose in life, it I feel like it looks vast, and maybe in God's eyes he's like, this is it, you know. But our steps to get there and to complete our purpose before this life is over, in the human aspect, can be so like wide ranged, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I know that could be a big jump to some people, but your everyday, those steps and um that mountain that we climb of life, it it caught like you have to elevate in order to get to the top of that mountain. And for me, the top of that mountain is fulfilling my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I like that's a lot. And but I feel like that's okay, you know. Like that's how my mind thinks. Sometimes it goes from small to really big to like, internet, what are you doing? And that's probably why I get so hard on myself too, because I do that. Like, oh, I need to make 20 calls to, I need to sell $1 million house. Like, how did you get there? How did you get there? But At the same time, our goals need to stay in the back of our head,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And our my goal of reaching a certain number of homes sold is not my ultimate goal. Like my ultimate goal is to fulfill my purpose here on earth, but my yearly goal is to sell 24 homes. But I think in keeping that goal, like, work with me, God, like, keep me on the path to my purpose. But also, like, show me that I'm on the right path. I'm on the right elevation, to fulfilling my purpose. And I'm with everything in me, I feel like my position as a commissioner and me helping people reach goals in their life of owning a home, I think that's all intertwined, because when I try to leave one, it pulls me right back in.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Y'all may think I'm crazy.
Well, I don't think you're crazy, but I like what you said, that it's like you have this dream, and those goals need to be in the back of your mind. And again, putting aside this idea of perfectionism, when we do have these goals in mind, I think they actually become more attainable when we set aside perfection, because we're focusing on the main mission, what we're really going towards. And so if something, along the way comes along, but it's not necessarily like integral and part of the overall goal, then maybe it's a good thing to be able to say no to, or set it aside, say, I've done this for so long, but it's not working towards this goal anymore. And so I think that's so important, to stay a dreamer, though.
I like that.
Because otherwise I think we can become really just disappointed, and that disappointment can set in within ourselves.
Yeah. How would you advise someone to stay a dreamer?
I think that's a great question. I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that, because I've only just started to realize how much I'm not a dreamer. So it's a struggle for me. But I know for me, a friend of mine and I were talking, and she's a very determined person, and she has dreams, and she dreams really big. And for me, it was inspiring to watch her, and it was also a challenge for me as well, to say, this is an area I want to grow in. I don't know how to get to that point now, but because my friend is kind of in that place already, what's great is I can come alongside of her and just kind of watch her in her journey, and glean from her. And I think that's so important in elevation, just period, as we're talking about it, because in every podcast you're doing, you have a co-host, and it's so important to, I think, have those people around to, come alongside of you, because we all have unique gifts and talents, and well, what can that person bring along, or what does that person know that maybe I don't know or don't understand? And it's great to be able to, inspire one another.
That's so important, to be able to pull from someone. Like, you have your friend who's the dreamer. You can walk side by side with her and learn how she dreams big, and how she can focus on certain things and get it accomplished and fulfill those dreams. And, like, to have someone like that, I think, will help you attain your goal of being a dreamer and accomplishing those dreams. And one thing that you said, that just came back to me, because I absolutely love it, and I use it because I stole it from you, is being fluid. Like, we talked about setting things aside and balancing, and you were telling me, like, being fluid is accepting the change of things. And, like, you may have an expectation, but that door may close, or it may look a certain way that you didn't expect it to look, and that's okay. If you have to stay fluid and go with the change. Like, how have you experienced that? Like, I know, with being a teacher, an aspiring writer, how has being fluid helped you?
So I feel like it has really cultivated because of my job as being a teacher. Like the Lord really knew what He was doing because He knew I needed there were some things I needed within me that if I didn't work with kids that just weren't going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so watching them, it's so interesting because it gives me just such a perspective of how God views us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just his love for us, his compassion for us, his understanding, his forgiveness, but also, you know, at the same time having, you know, these firm boundaries of safety and protection as well. But for me, as I'm teaching, it has been, I really feel like cultivated in me this idea of being fluid because I need to be able to put aside, you know, some things maybe that I have some expectations, some maybe standards, and not to say that I don't want my kids, you know, to elevate
right.
and, you know, get to the next step, but if there's a moment of crisis with them, you know, maybe they're struggling, they're having a hard time, you know, what my expectation is in that moment is not as important what's going on with them.
Right.
So I really have to be able to put that aside or maybe view it in a different perspective and say, this is not working. Right. So how else could I attain this goal that I have for them? Right. Is this a realistic goal? Yeah. So I think there are times when reflection needs to come into that right. as well. I think that's a huge part of fluidity is being like, is this working? Could it be done better? Mm-hmm. Is there somebody else maybe that knows more than me? So yeah. I can ask, hey, you know, I have this person that they are better in doing this. Maybe I can go to them and ask, hey, right. you know, I saw you doing this. How did you do that? How do you think that I can attain this where I'm at?
Yeah. I think you hit on so many points. With my last co-host, we talked about how other generations can actually help us to elevate, and she's a coach. And she talked about, you know, just how younger kids help her, one, laugh at herself because they're very like, you know, just show you your like flaws and not point the finger, but laugh about it. Like it's not, they teach you like not everything is a big deal, you know, but at the same time, they're also teaching you to be a caring individual because you have to take care of them. So I like that, and just the fact of being fluid because what is important to them at the time may need to be what's important, you know, and not so much of what you had planned for the day for them. If they hit their crisis, which, you know, for us as adults, it may not be a big thing, but for them, it will stop their day. Mm-hmm. So you have to like really open your mind to them. And I love that you said sometimes you have to take a step back and maybe ask somebody like that may know more than you. That's difficult at times. Like people do not want to say like they don't know the answer, and they definitely don't want to go to someone and say, hey, you probably know more than me, can you help me? Asking for help can be really hard. I don't mind asking for help because I am the first one to admit I do not know everything. And I know that I need help, but there are some areas where I feel so confident and I'm like, oh man, I don't want to ask. Or I feel embarrassed, like I should know this, but I would rather ask than try to figure it out and I'm wrong. And then everyone will know I'm wrong. So, you know, but it I feel like that's a part of elevating too, to be able to say, hey, I need help. Instead of just getting it wrong, hiding, or like covering things up. Like asking for help is a way of elevating and being vulnerable. You know, I think that's important. I think kids show us that too because they are easily like they easily show their vulnerability. Like yeah. Just because, you know, they're not thinking about all the like trying to be tough or trying to, you know, save face or anything like that. They're like, I need help. Like I need help. This is serious to me. Help me, you know, and you're the person as their teacher that they can rely on, which is I feel like that's so important. Teachers don't get enough like credit at all. And I think during COVID that showed a lot because a lot of parents couldn't deal with their kids. They're like, I had to deal with my kid all year. Like, they're begging teachers, like, just take them. I'll drop them off. Like, it was hard for a lot of parents to even deal with their kids for such a long time. So I commend you for being able to go in and say, yeah, I'll take your kids. I'll teach them. I'll mold them. I'll help in that part of raising them because that is like such an important job that teachers don't get enough credit for that.
I mean, it is. My job has been something that has really just showed me so much over the years, and I'm so grateful to be able to do what I do and really enjoy it for the most part. You know, it has its moments, it has its days, but for the most part, really enjoy what I do. But what I like what you said was that, you know, when asking for help, there is this sense of vulnerability, which, again, what you said, kids don't have that hesitancy to show that vulnerability. And I think in some ways, as adults, we can learn from kids in that aspect because it's so important. It's so important to be able to just really let our guards down. And it's hard, though. With, you know, like you said, it's extremely hard because we don't want to be, you know, made to feel embarrassed or belittled or, you know, anything like that. But at the same point, you know, in dropping down our defenses and being able to have that moment, I think it puts us in a position to be able to actually go further because, you know, humility is such a beautiful gift, and we have to be able to receive it, and it's something that's very hard to do, but it really is this receiving of this gift to be able to then utilize it, I think, and that is part of it, is just coming along and saying, I don't know everything.
Right.
You know, I don't know everything, even about teaching. I don't know. I've learned a lot over the last several years since getting into it, and I've watched my coworkers that have done it for longer than I have.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to watch them because they also really love what they do. And it's so good to be able to work together and talk about things. And sometimes I just really need their feedback and their advice. And so I'll ask them, hey, you know, this is what I did or this is what I said. What do you think? And that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
But it puts me in this position to grow. And that's ultimately what elevation is. Growth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is what it is. And I want to kind of switch it, but at the same time, not switch it because we're still going to talk about elevation. But sometimes when you elevate, it makes other people uncomfortable. And I have seen that, especially after this election, getting elected into the seat that I'm in. People, like, even people that said they were, you know, campaigning for me or voting for me or whatever, when I won, they kind of like flipped the script, and it was very surprising and it was very hard to deal with. And I probably have not elevated from that too much because sometimes I look at people like, yeah, I haven't grown. I haven't grown quite enough to deal with you yet. But have you experienced like relationships that have either changed or fallen apart because you wanted to make yourself better?
Actually, I would say yes, and maybe probably, you know, other people that are watching this have, you know, could say the same thing as well, because it looks different than what people are used to from you. And now it's like maybe you're being, you know, selfish by, you know, maybe putting up certain boundaries.
Yes.
And also just wanting something more. And I think that growth sometimes can make people around us in relationship with us a little bit nervous because it's like, oh, okay, well, does that mean I'm going with you?
Right.
Does that mean I have to change too?
Right.
So it being in relationship with people that are going towards, you know, are working towards elevation than just elevation ourselves. we need to have an honest conversation with ourselves
Yeah.
about, relationships that are important. And sometimes I think honestly communicating to, like, hey, you're an important person in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I see this is happening. Can you tell me what's going on? Or vice versa. Maybe you're that person
Yeah.
that, that
Yeah.
is having a hard time with
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
else. And so, if that person is, again, important enough to you and they're a priority in your life,
Mm-hmm.
sitting down, having that conversation, hey, you're important to me. And I just see things changing. I love you and I want to be a part with you. So how can I do that? How can I support you? But it's got to come from a place of honesty.
Yeah.
It's also got to come from a place of love
Yeah.
too, when you're
Yeah.
trying to really grow in a relationship.
Yeah, and like really be sincere about it because people can tell when you're not sincere. Um, I and I think you have to be sincere to yourself as well because if you're the one that's like, oh, I don't like how they're changing, why? Is it that they're changing in an area where you think it's taking them downward? Well, speak up so they will know and can be better, or are they changing and elevating and leaving you behind? I think it's an evaluation of self, as well as an evaluation of your relationship. Um, and for like I said, I am not the best because I just get upset. When I saw people kind of getting upset with me when I set boundaries after I had like my mental struggle, I had to really set boundaries because I was breaking my back for other people, but when I was struggling, no one was there. So I set boundaries, people didn't like that. And then when I was elected, I didn't have time to do all the stuff I was doing for other people, and they didn't like that. So it's like, were we in this friendship because I was doing so much for you, and now I can't? So you're like, never mind. Like, and so it was difficult to assess. And for me, I don't deal well with conflict, and I kind of stray away from it. I close down.
Hmm.
And that's an area that I'm still working on. That is part of my elevating this year is to not be confrontational, but to stand up for myself and to confront the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let the issue live and I just go around it. So that is my growth area that I want. That's the area I want to grow in. Um, do you have an area that you have, this year you want to grow in, you want to elevate, you've already seen it, acknowledge it, and you said this is it?
Yeah, so I think like you said, and probably many other people, I have goals in mind for myself that
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to just see movement in. It's not like I have a deadline of when I want certain things to
Mm-hmm.
happen, but I'm like, well, I see that this is like a weakness of mine. Okay, how can I challenge myself, to take that next step? And so, one of the areas is in my writing,
Okay.
prioritizing, just working on it more. And and that's one of my expectations of myself that I've kind
Mm-hmm.
of let go. I'm gonna write even if it's just complete like a mess, and
Yeah.
even if it doesn't make sense, it's
Mm-hmm.
not that great. I'm just gonna allow myself that process to be able to go in there and just put my
Right.
passion um, down into words. And then the other probably goal I would say that I have, like growth area, as you stated so poignantly, is for myself that I'm going to step into new areas
Mm-hmm.
where I'm not very comfortable. Like I joined this team of other strong women that are looking to do just like
Mm-hmm.
you are doing through this podcast, and to help elevate other women into a community of women. And so I'm stepping up and on part of the team and being able to help this organization to do just that. And
Yeah.
it's an area for me where I'm like, ooh, because that, for one, that means commitment of my time,
Yep.
which is a hard thing to for me. But at the same point, I'm stepping into a relationship with these other women that
Yeah.
I may not know all that well. And I need a sense to trust them. So that is something that I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm committing to this in a multitude of ways. But I know this is where God wants me. I
Yeah.
know this is something where I can benefit, because this is a moment where all these other women
Mm-hmm.
know more than me, and so I'm going to take that
Nice.
position and say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to ask for your help though.
Right. Nice. That organization, so you guys are doing like events and stuff like that?
So yes, we are doing events. It's called My Beautiful Brown Life. It's in the Metro Detroit area, and it there's a blog. There's just a community of women as well, on social media, and so it's this organization of women that really want to come around and support authentic friendships, the sense of honest self love,
Yeah.
and just being able to elevate together.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
really what we're looking to do, and we're starting off this year really strong.
Good. How can we find out more about this group?
So if you go on www.beautifulbrownlife.com, you'll be able to find out more information about any upcoming events. The blog is on there, and how to connect further with either people in the community or people
Right.
in leadership.
Nice. I am all for women uplifting women, because it's like we need a cheer section. You know, we there's a lot of different issues that we have to face just on an everyday basis, and sometimes our boyfriends or husbands or whoever, they don't understand that, but another woman will get it. So just to have another woman say, "Hey, you're doing great. I'm proud of you. Keep pushing. I'm here if you need me." That goes very far. So organizations like that are really important. That sisterhood is so important. So I'm glad that you found them and you've let us know about them as well. And we're definitely going to be cheering you on, like for your writing. I think you said you're going to be writing even if it doesn't make sense, and that's great, because watch, when you're putting everything together, you're going to go back to this one part like, oh, it does fit in. Like it didn't make sense this day, but 2 months later it fits in perfect. Like that is going to be, everything's going to fall into place. And I, for one, am just excited to see the outcome of all your hard work and your dedication, and I'm already proud of you. So I feel like I need to set some more goals. but you know, like our goals, what I love about this podcast is we can come together, we can cheer for each other, and we do not have to compete. Like there's no competition, there's just encouragement and love, and just like being proud of one another just for making it through the day. I'm glad that you made you made it through the day. I made it through the day. You know, it's just like that's something to like say, hey, you did good. You did good today. Like I did not yell at my husband today. I didn't yell at my kids. The day is not over, but I didn't yell at them. So I'm winning. Like I'm winning today. Like I feel very mellow, even though it snowed. I had to shovel twice. But I still feel good. I'm grateful and I'm thankful for where I am right now. Um, and I'm grateful and thankful for you for just spending this time with me. I will let you guys know this is the second time we've done this. The first time magically like deleted. You could hear us in the beginning. The middle kind of got deleted and it came back and then deleted. It was very strange. But I said we have to do this again because it just what we had to talk about I felt was so important, and we are just looking for all of you to elevate and to to pull more from yourselves for yourselves, and just allow this community of sisterhood to cheer you on, and just, I feel like as we go up this mountain, we can always leave a hand out so we can pull up another sister. So, and that's what this is about. So, thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope that you will come back and talk on another topic of elevation with us and let us know how your writing is going.
Oh, thank you. I have loved it, and I really like that this is true elevation because it does, like you said, it is inclusive. And that's really what elevation is. So thank you so much for including me today.
Yay! I'm so excited. I'm just glad you were willing to come back. Because we've talked like a half hour before we even got on. We talk about a lot of stuff, and it's just so natural. So I appreciate you, and I hope you guys enjoyed this part of the podcast. I hope you got a really good understanding of what elevation means. And of course, I am here if you have questions